Let's start with why Nicolás Maduro became a top national security concern. He didn't just mismanage Venezuela, he transformed it into a launchpad for threats aimed directly at the United States. Narcotics trafficking. A U.S. federal indictment unsealed in 2026 alleges that Maduro has been deeply involved in a cocaine trafficking conspiracy dating back to the late 1990s. Prosecutors say he partnered with violent cartels, some designated as terrorist organizations, to move massive quantities of cocaine toward the U.S. According to the indictment, Maduro abused state power to protect traffickers, coordinate shipments, and silence opposition through kidnappings, beatings, and killings. Investigations led by the U.S. Department of Justice describe how Venezuela under Maduro evolved into a full-scale narco-state, fueling addiction, crime, and overdoses on American streets. Foreign adversaries inside Venezuela's oil sector. Venezuela holds the world's largest proven oil reserves, but production collapsed under corruption and mismanagement. Maduro filled that vacuum by inviting strategic rivals, Iran, China, and Russia, to take control of critical energy infrastructure. China extended tens of billions in oil-backed loans. Russia assumed control of key oil assets and joint ventures. Iran signed long-term agreements to repair refineries and expand its footprint, including military-linked projects. These weren't ordinary business deals. They gave hostile powers strategic footholds in the Western Hemisphere and tools to evade sanctions while coordinating against U.S. interests. Migration used as a weapon. Maduro's rule triggered the largest mass migration in modern Latin American history, over 8 million Venezuelans fleeing since 2013. Mixed into that flow were hardened criminals, including members of the Tren de Aragua gang. U.S. law enforcement agencies have linked the group to dozens of investigations involving trafficking, shootings, and kidnappings across multiple states. The chaos inside Venezuela didn't just spill over, it was exploited, allowing criminal networks to embed themselves inside the U.S. Bottom line, Maduro wasn't just an isolated dictator. He enabled cocaine cartels, opened Venezuela's strategic industries to hostile regimes, and presided over conditions that exported criminal gangs abroad. Working in parallel with Iran, China, and Russia, his regime posed a direct and sustained threat to U.S. national security. So why did President Donald Trump move to neutralize Maduro? Because removing Nicolás Maduro isn't just about accountability, it's a strategic strike that hits multiple threats at once. It shuts down the narco pipeline at the source. With Maduro removed from power, the state-protected drug networks he allegedly oversaw begin to collapse. For years, Venezuelan institutions were used to shield cocaine routes moving massive volumes toward the United States. The indictments describe a system where corruption at the very top allowed drugs to flow freely while enriching regime insiders. Taking Maduro out doesn't just arrest one man, it dismantles the command structure that enabled trafficking on an industrial scale. The same applies to criminal gangs. Groups like Tren de Aragua operated openly inside Venezuelan prisons, particularly Tocaron, with little resistance from the regime. With U.S. leverage restored, these organizations can be targeted before they export violence abroad, cutting off gang infiltration that has already shown up in numerous U.S. states. And most strategically important, it's about oil. Venezuela's energy sector is the real pressure point. For years, Maduro allowed U.S. adversaries, China, Russia, and Iran, to tap into Venezuelan crude as a geopolitical lifeline. By 2025, China had become Venezuela's largest oil customer, importing hundreds of thousands of barrels per day, often at deep discounts and through opaque shipping networks designed to bypass sanctions. In peak months, China absorbed the majority of Venezuela's exports. Russia maintained joint ventures and supplied critical diluents to keep Venezuelan heavy crude flowing, while Iran used refinery and energy agreements to deepen both economic and military cooperation. This wasn't charity, it was strategic fuel. Discounted Venezuelan oil helped China reduce energy costs for its economy. Russia softened the impact of sanctions and sustained its war footing. Iran funded regional proxies and military programs. Cut that flow, and everything changes. With U.S. oversight of Venezuelan production and refining, those discounted barrels disappear. China is forced back into tighter global markets. Russia loses indirect support that helps prop up its energy revenues. Iran's oil for military arrangements weaken. Even more powerful. A revived Venezuelan oil sector aligned with the U.S. could dramatically increase global supply over time, driving prices down. Lower oil prices hit Russia especially hard, where energy revenues make up a major share of the national budget. They also forced China and Iran to pay more elsewhere, shrinking the resources available for conflicts in Ukraine, Taiwan, and the Middle East. Bottom line. Capturing Maduro isn't symbolic, it's surgical. It disrupts drug trafficking, weakens transnational gangs, and cuts off an energy lifeline that China, Russia, and Iran quietly relied on. It's a move that reshapes power dynamics immediately, without firing a single shot. Let's zoom out and look at the bigger picture behind capturing Nicolás Maduro. This move isn't just about immediate wins, it's part of a long-term strategy to ensure the U.S. leads securely and sustainably in the Western Hemisphere. Removing foreign footholds in our backyard. Maduro's alliances with China, Russia, and Iran gave those competitors strategic influence right next door, from oil deals and infrastructure to political leverage. Recent U.S. demands require Venezuela to sever those ties before any new partnership with Washington moves forward, effectively evicting hostile influence from the hemisphere. That matters because it shifts the geopolitical balance. The U.S. regains primacy in a region where rival powers had quietly expanded their presence, and regional security is reframed on American terms, reorienting oil and economic power toward U.S. interests. Under Maduro, Venezuelan oil flowed largely to foreign partners, especially Chinese refiners buying discounted crude. With U.S. control over oil exports and production channels, those flows are being redirected, hurting the ability of adversaries to rely on cheap energy as a geopolitical tool. This helps the U.S. not just economically but strategically, weakening the influence foreign powers can exert through energy leverage, while positioning U.S. markets and companies at the center of Venezuela's recovery and future exports. A proactive doctrine, not a reactive policy. The goal here is forward defense, preventing threats before they fully materialize rather than scrambling once they're already at our doorstep. This approach echoes a modern interpretation of hemispheric leadership, where the U.S. asserts dominance not through isolation but through managed influence, security partnerships, and economic ties that lock in long-term alignment across the Americas. Stabilization and U.S. leadership. A stable, U.S.-aligned Venezuela could help revive regional economies, reduce drivers of migration pressure at the U.S. border, secure critical energy and resource flows that benefit American consumers and industries. By tying Venezuela's future to American markets, investments, and policy frameworks, the U.S. isn't just winning a moment, it's shaping an era. Capturing Maduro isn't just a win, it's a blueprint for sustained American strength. It halts threats at the source, reclaims strategic ground from global rivals, and secures our leadership in the hemisphere for generations. If you believe in proactive leadership in America first, forever, hit like, subscribe, and share. Let me know what you think in the comments. Did this bold move reset global power? Thanks for watching, stay vigilant, and God bless America.